SciByte is produced by JupiterBroadcasting.com, independent entertainment that's on demand. Check us out. Hi everyone, you're listening to SciByte, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly science show. This is episode 29, and we streamed it live on January 17th for release on January 18th, the day the internet went dark, 2012. My name is Chris, and joining me like every single week is Heather. Hey Heather.
Hello there, Chris.
Hey, happy science to you.
Happy
Internet
science.
Dark Day. I don't know if anyone is hearing this because according to my sources, now this is of course the day ahead, and SciByte has not yet cracked time travel, but according to my sources, the internet is going offline the day this episode comes out.
We haven't heard messages back from neutrinos yet.
Ever? Oh yeah. Maybe I'll get some neutrinos and I'll be able to tell time before the episode's over. You want to tell people what we have coming up this week?
Yes. Today we're going to take a look at the new and exciting exoplanet news, all 300 million parts of it, how social media can actually help science, news about the space station, and always take a peek back into history and up in the sky.
Nice. Yeah, the exoplanet news is outrageous. Should we really quickly, do you mind defining what an exoplanet is? Because I know we said it last week, but maybe we have some new viewers this week.
Yeah. Exoplanets are when we look at other stars in other systems, we see planets around them. So it's a planet that's exterior to our own solar system. And most of the time we can spot them by looking at a star and we'll see it dim just slightly, and that's when the planet passes in front of it. And then we can use ground-based observations to sort of confirm those, but that's how we start seeing these planets, is the Kepler Space Telescope looks at a whole bunch of these stars in a portion of the sky and looks for this dimming that sort of lets us indicate that there's probably a planet up next to it.
Well, I am excited about today's episode because, to be honest with you, I am currently experiencing the snowpocalypse here in the Pacific Northwest. I have been cooped up in my house, which has now actually become a snow cave, turns out.
Oh.
And I am ready for some science, I got to tell you. Because really, one of the best things about SciByte is after you listen to this, you can show off to your friends. Like, you go to the cocktail party, and we've got little treasure troves of knowledge that you can just drop on people and be like, yeah, so I know a few things about planets outside our solar system.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right,
in your snow cave, you can tunnel your way out and show all the neighbors who are frozen how cool you are.
Right. Look at you. I want to look how impressive my knowledge is.
Yes.
All right. Well, maybe that's not the route to go. Should we move on to the news? Are you ready?
Yes.
All right, well, we teased it. We're going to talk a lot about exoplanets today. So what's the latest in the exoplanet news, Heather?
The smallest planets ever seen exterior to our solar system have been discovered. In December, we heard about some planets that were fairly small. They were the smallest so far, at about 2.5 times the size of the Earth. And then later in December, they said, we found Earth-sized planets. Now, some astronomers have publicly released through the Kepler mission data that they have made a couple of planetary discoveries. One, the smallest, is about the size of Mars.
Ooh.
Which is about a third of the size of Earth.
Oh. That's pretty interesting. Now, would maybe it be more common that planets are on the smaller side? Because it's interesting that we've had a few planets now they've discovered that are around Earth size, not so much Jupiter size.
Yeah. Well, it's part of it is our observational ability to look at this, is that, the big planets would dim the star a lot easier to see. It's like, it's dimming it, by 25%. That's easy to spot. But the smaller the planet, the harder it is to see that tiny dip in lightness, in the brightness of the star.
Right.
And actually, these were quite interesting because we found them around red dwarf stars. These are sort of really cool, not awesomely cool, but cool in temperature stars that make up about 80% of the Milky Way galaxy.
Whoa, so they are the dominant star.
Yeah, they're the dominant star in galaxies. And we find these, and actually, the whole system, including the star, is more along the lines of like Jupiter and its moon's size rather than our whole solar system. I mean, the star itself is about 70% larger than Jupiter. So I mean, it's
Jupiter. Now, is that just because Jupiter is huge, or is that because this is a really, really small star?
Well, Jupiter is large. It's not huge because we've seen a whole bunch of these super Jupiters. Jupiter is large, but the star is really small.
Okay.
I mean, it's only like 16% the size of the sun. So it's a pretty small star.
Oh, okay. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Now, the planets discovered are really too close to, be of any valuable, water temperature. They're really close. So that's about, over 800 degrees Fahrenheit to over 350. So, I mean, they're pretty warm places.
Jeez, yeah.
They're less than all of them are less than 2% the distance of Earth to the sun. They're, if you take that, then they're less than 2% away from their sun. But the whole thing is interesting, not only because it's small planets and we're being able to spy things that small, but because we didn't previously think that we'd find planets around red dwarfs. And since they make up about 80% of the galaxy, they think so far that about a third of those would possibly have rocky planets, which really alters the estimations of how many planets are in our galaxy.
And how many rocky planets those might be.
Yes. How many rocky planets, how many
which means
solar systems.
How many might have plant life on them or even animal life.
Well, yeah, I mean, we still have yet to see something in the habitable zone of the right size and, rockiness. So
okay, all right. Okay, so that's you're tempering me a bit. I see here. I understand. I'm reading between the lines there. You're saying no, don't get excited.
Yeah, don't get too excited yet. It's just that the more planets there are, maybe the more likely it is that we'll find something that could have little microbes crawling around. Yeah. I don't know. So far, we really haven't seen anything that matches that matches Earth. The size and the location and location, and that's still important with planets. Very
Just like
important.
it is with a rental property or a house or a vacation spot, it is with a planet as well.
Yep, you want it just far enough away from the really exciting stuff, but not too far so that it's too far to drive. It's like that sweet spot location.
Well, are they? I mean, they're only scratching the surface. So when you say they haven't found anything in the sweet spot yet, they have only looked at a very small fraction of the sweet spot, right?
Yeah. The Kepler Telescope, space telescope itself, that's making a lot of these discoveries, or the data is all the astronomers finding these discoveries are in the data from that telescope, and it makes up only about a fist. If you hold out your fist against the sky, it's only looking at about that much sky. So it's only looking at a small part of it.
Crash Benedict in the chat room, and he's a big fan of Eggs Benedict. That's where the name came from. He was wondering, can they tell what kind of atmosphere that these new exoplanets have?
I know on one they were able to tell. They're actually able to tell it had some water because its atmosphere was sort of trailing behind it. It was too hot. Sort of the water was boiling off of it.
Ooh,
it was almost like a comet planet. And so as that passed in front of the star, they were able to look at that through the starlight and be able to get the spectrum of what was in between them. Like we can see, the gases and lights and the sun. We can spy specific spectrums of elements and compounds. So we could sort of see the spectrum between that star shone a certain light and then the water was there. So we were able to see that. Really, as far as atmospheres go, they're pretty small. Like they're pretty tight against a planet, and we're not out being able to see that a rock is there or a gas bubble is there. Of these super Jupiters or something. So being able to get the spectrum from the atmospheres, if there should be one, was really difficult with current technology. Now we might I mean, you never know. Astronomers might be able to, you know, take apart the data from there and sort of make good guesstimations, or maybe, a generation or two telescope down the line that we're able to see those kind of things.
Right. Yeah, that'd be exciting. And again, if something was outside of the atmosphere, of Earth's atmosphere, might have a better chance of seeing something that kind of finely detailed far away.
Yeah, that's why these space telescopes are so important with this stuff, is because seeing through the atmosphere, we mentioned it before, is sort of like taking a picture outside of your car through the glass.
Yeah, through the car's window. Now, should we talk a little bit about Kepler, because they just released a study, and is Kepler, they're on the ground, right?
The Kepler Space Telescope is the orbiting one.
Oh, it is Kepler Space.
Yes.
Okay, so Kepler's in space, and Kepler, we've just since this show has come back, have just gotten gobs and gobs and gobs of awesome stuff to talk about on the show from Kepler. It's like been one of the best sources of cool new info, and they just put something out just really recently, didn't they?
There've been. Oh yes, we heard last year about the Tatooine planet. That it's a planet orbiting two stars, which we really didn't think would happen either. All of our models said, nope, not possible. Now they've discovered not one but two more systems where planets are orbiting binary stars.
No kidding.
Yeah. So, we've just discovered that this is possible, and now we have three different systems that it actually exists in. These two are about almost 5,000 and almost 5,500 light years from Earth. And
are they just getting torn the heck up by two suns, by the gravity, pulling and squeezing from two different huge bodies like that? Does the planet get just? Do we have any kind of indication of how that strain is on the planet?
Well, that's part of the reason why we thought they wouldn't exist in the first place, is because we assumed that the gravitational forces on them would just be so great and strained and pulling in different directions that it really wouldn't work out. Now, some of these would almost be like there a lot of stars in our galaxy are binaries. They're two stars orbiting each other. And there are systems that are three stars sort of orbiting each other. These planetary systems, where it's circumbinary, where it's a planet and two stars, are almost like the three-star systems, where it's sort of they're orbiting each other. So, like one of the planets orbits in about 289 days, the other in about 130 days. But they orbit. Each of them orbit one star. They're both about the size of Saturn, and then the stars orbit each other. Now, these stars aren't necessarily as close as you would think. They just are capturing each other's gravity. So there's some cases where a smaller star is orbiting almost like a planet, and then the planet itself is sort of orbiting both of them. So there's different scenarios that can happen, and there's one large star, one small star, which is oftentimes what happens with these binary star systems. And these new planetary circumbinary, these new systems in the Tatooine type systems are also amongst the farthest planets ever discovered to date.
Now that's really interesting too, isn't it?
Yeah, that we're seeing smaller, we're seeing farther. It's the bounds are being stretched in all these different ways, and it's really
surprises.
Yeah, we keep having to change our models. We're like, all right, change the model in this way. Oh, change the model in that way. I mean, it's making it more accurate, but yeah, there's a lot of refining and tweaking about what is possible out there.
So when we're looking out that far, or any of these new systems, do we see planets like, we've talked a lot about rocky planets, we've talked a lot about gas giants. What about planets like gas giants or planets with rings like Saturn, things like that?
Up until recently, no. They were looking at some data from a star about 420 light years away. So it's about similar in mass to our star, maybe a fraction of its age. So it's much younger, but about the same size. And when they were looking at its, dimming process, it looked a little strange. what it looked like was the planet took almost 2 months to transit the star, and it would dim to like 95% of the star's light away, and then it would kind of let it grow bright again, and then it would dim and grow bright again. And it would take 2 months for this to finish.
Did it have like a moon really close to it following it or something?
Well, that was some of the things they were asking is like, okay, what could make this happen? And then they ruled out all these other astronomical circumstances. It's not this, it can't be that. It must be a dusty ring system, sort of like Saturn. It has gaps in it. It has clearly identified rings stretched tens of millions of kilometers around it. So these would make the first extrasolar ring system transiting a sun-like star. So it's like any star that's like our sun, this is the first time we've seen rings in a system. Now, there are some questions.
Is that very surprising, to be honest? I mean, to me, that doesn't seem like that would be, I don't know, so groundbreaking because why wouldn't it? Why wouldn't that happen?
It makes sense for it to happen, but observing it itself is important because we have theories about how all these things work based on our solar system. We're like, oh, this is how everything works. And then, we start seeing for other systems. We're like, oh, not particularly, not always, actually very rarely. So this and this can happen and that can happen.
Right.
And it's interesting because, well, one, they're not quite sure right now whether the rings are around the star or around a planet.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I never even thought. Of course, rings could go around a star, couldn't they?
Well, if you think about planetary formation, then you have this ring of dust around a star.
Yeah.
And in Saturn's, you see the beautiful gaps that make the nice little circles in the rings.
Right.
The gaps are from moons. The moons of Saturn sort of form these little gaps in the stars based on their gravity. They sort of clear away a little path and ripple the rings, and they make them nice and defined. So the question is, if it is around a star, could this be the late stages of planetary formation? Could it be a very thin dust cloud left and planets are forming and creating these nice gaps? Or if it is a large star, then, a large planet, then are these moons? And Daxam from the chat room reminds me that they're called shepherd moons because they sort of shepherd herd the rings into specific locations.
They're like border collies for the moons.
Like border collies for rings.
We talked about, it was last week we talked about border collies, right?
Yes, we talked about dogs.
Yeah, we talked about dogs. Yeah, we got a few people that wrote in and left a comment that mentioned their dogs were, I had a border collie too. Very smart, very smart.
Yes.
So anyways, this is pretty fascinating because it could mean that these systems we're looking at are at a certain maturity point if it is the shepherd moons.
Yes. So, it could be shepherd moons around a gas giant planet. It could be around the star, or it could be one of these binary systems where it's a very low mass star or what's called a brown dwarf, which, we always there's a lot of argument about poor Pluto about the small scale of what a planet is.
Mm-hmm.
But there is actually just as much confusion about large planet versus brown dwarf. A brown dwarf star is sort of a star that didn't quite have what it takes to ignite. So there was questions about how small does quote unquote planet get and how big does planet get before it changes into a brown dwarf. So these are
the other way too.
Yeah, it went the other way too. So there's there's a question where it's a low mass star or a brown dwarf. Could there be rings around that? And then could there be shepherd moons or shepherd planets or whatever around those objects too?
Oh boy, that'd be very interesting to see, wouldn't it? Maybe we will. Maybe Kepler will bring us that someday. You never know.
There are some astronomers are pouring through the data trying to see if they can take the data they have or sign up for extra, say, could you please look at this system again when you get a chance? And then take more data and just tear apart the data and
go back here and look at more.
We'll take the data and try to pull out all the extra information they can. Now that they've spotted this system. Yep. Now that you kind of spot something nice and important, then you kind of go through the whole data set, which, all the years of the data, and try to pull everything for that particular star system out, and then start analyzing all of it to see what you can sort of pick up from all that.
And then repeat, rinse, and repeat, right?
Yes.
Get more time on that Kepler array and get more pictures and get that data and then analyze that data.
Yeah, it's taking 250,000 stars. It pretty much takes consecutive data on all of those. So, but it's only a small portion. So, and in order for it to get, we've talked about it before, but in order to get on the possible planet list, it has to pass in front of the star at least 3 times.
Okay.
And then it goes down to Earth-based telescopes, and they're able to look at this star and take very specific spectral analysis, redshift and blue shift, and spy the star and be like, it's moving just barely away and just barely towards as the planet is affecting the location of the star, its gravitational effect on the star, and be able to identify this is a planet. We see how big it is. This would indicate how massive it is. Then it's a confirmed planet, and they can take all that data and sort of take it and say, this is how big it is. This is its mass. We know it's rocky. We know it's this density. We know it's all this other data that you can pull from just those things.
It is very fascinating, and it's an ongoing story, which is awesome because we get to keep covering it.
Yes, it just keeps coming and coming.
Now, this first story is sort of like a sort of mashup of like 4 stories, and there are a ton of links in the show notes with video animations.
There's an interactive website that's fun. You can sort of create a planet and be like, I want it to be this big and this far away from the star and this kind of a star, and you can just like your planet will look, all dry and cracked, or like water covering all the planets. You can kind of tweak everything until you get it like there's little continents.
A very pretty planet. It was very nice. Yes. It looked like a great place to take a vacation or something.
Nice place to live, but you wouldn't want to visit?
Well, both. I try to make it something that kind of like Ryza. Think Ryza.
Okay.
Yeah, nice and comfy. And also, just tons of links for the story, you guys. If you were interested in these topics, you've got to go check the show notes for this one. You think this is probably a good spot to take a quick break?
Yes, let's take a break.
All right, so this week I just want to tell you that if you're going to do some shopping, we have links for you that you can use to support the network. If you're going to shop at ThinkGeek, Newegg, Audible, which, by the way, I'm working on my next Audible book. So if you guys are reading an Audible, or reading, I can't help it. If you're listening to an Audible book right now, finish it up because I got something big for you coming up. So we have links in there for Audible. Also, if you're going to buy from bestbuy.com, links for that. Also links for Amazon UK and Amazon USA if you're going to do a little shopping. But we also have an interesting new one, mint.com. And mint.com is actually free. So I don't know why they pay us if you guys sign up, but they will.
What
mint.com, it's online personal finance management that's automatic. Now, this sounds scary when I tell you this at first. I will say this. Go to jupiterbroadcasting.com/faux show. We actually did a faux show on it. Maybe Angela might give you a specific link, but this sounds scary, but let me just tell you, you give it your account logins for your bank website and maybe like your credit card or like if you have a loan somewhere or if you have an IRA or a 401k account somewhere. You give it this different login information. It goes out and collates all of that information together, gives you reports on, and automatic budgets, goes through and tags what you're buying and where you're spending your money on things. It keeps track of all of your investments. It can keep track of, like Alan mentioned, he has some gold bars that he keeps track of in here. Mint is now owned by Intuit. And they use the same credentials backend systems that all of the online banking systems use anyway. So they're not like storing your passwords. They actually use they use tokens with these third-party authentication providers. So it's not as actually freaky as it sounds once you understand how the backend works on it. But it is like a network monitoring system or a heads-up dashboard for your financial life, and it is really nice. I think my wife and I have used it for about 3 or 4 years now. I've used it for a long time, since we used Mint before it was cool. And it has done a great service in helping us find, like, boy, you know what, we spent $1,100 on food one time, and so what do we have to do to kind of budget that a little better and things like that. So it's cool and it's free. You can check it out at mint.com. There's links though you have to use in the show notes, or again, any of the other places you want to shop, like Best Buy, Audible, Newegg, or ThinkGeek. Just click those links before you start shopping, and we get a percentage of your purchase. So thank you for doing that. We really do appreciate it. All right, Heather, now that I'm all done with that, why don't we do the SciByte News Bite?
Yes.
That's our first story in the News Bite.
Social media can actually help science. As weird and as crazy as that sounds.
Oh, I don't know. It doesn't sound so crazy. I don't think that sounds super crazy.
Okay, not super crazy. But they were able to track infectious and communicable diseases much faster using social media than the official sources can. The official data of where the flu is, or like in zones where
when bird flu broke out, or was it bird flu? No, what was it? A swine flu.
Yeah, swine flu, bird flu.
Out, yeah. Like
cholera after earthquakes. So it's all these things where they can go through and tag certain words and use Twitter or use Facebook, or there's other websites that can do HealthMap, they call it, that goes through and they tag certain words and follow up and say, this is where it is, this is where it is. It's not the official versions, but it gives you more up to the minute answers about what's going where. In fact, for a while now, Google has had a Google flu type thing, and it has it tagged for certain search words. And to say, okay, these search words indicate that the flu is higher here or in this area, or it's coming up. And it's actually able to track it really well about 2 weeks before official sources can.
Yeah, this is based on people in those areas searching for like flu symptoms or how to home remedy for the flu and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. Now, at the start, it was just sort of national averages. Now they've got it down to states. They're talking that they might be able to have it down to cities so that they can tell local hospitals, it looks like we're going to see a step up in the next 2 weeks. And then it'll emit, and then they'll see the numbers go down. It's like, oh, it looks like numbers are going down. Now, it's not going to be as accurate as laboratory tracking methods, and it's never going to replace it. But in addition to current surveillance options, it's really amazing that they can get these sort of things quicker and faster to get a better idea, for these areas where cholera starts breaking out, and they can see that it's attacking here and there, and sort of track where it is or where the flu is or any of these communicable diseases. They could use these kind of social media sites to get a better idea of where things are quicker.
There's also, to me, a semi-uncomfortableness I have with it.
Mm-hmm.
Because that all means it's being... those are all characteristics of my search history that are now stored in a Google profile about me. And Google will now know that in January of 2012, I had the flu. And that, to me, is a little concerning, because what happens when that data goes to another party, or, through subpoena or through some sort of business agreement or whatever? Is that potentially something to be worried about down the road? I mean, at first pass, it doesn't seem to be that bad. It seems to be fairly good, but taken to the extreme, it could also be a bad thing, because it's essentially surveillance without really realizing you're being surveyed.
It all really comes down. Now, this is not the technical show. It all depends on who's doing it and how they store their data. Is it just Google, where they're just saying, this is the trend word for the day? And it's just overall, we're getting these search terms from these areas, or are they tracking you specifically, and are they keeping that data? Or are they just saying there were 300,000, searches for flu or flu symptoms in the state of Kansas last week? Mm-hmm. You should probably be aware that there's going to be more flu this week. Hospitals And so is it
Yeah.
just that? Or, I mean, Twitter obviously keeps some sort of history. So if you're keeping for these cholera epidemics in various places, so they can still track specific Twitter, handles and be like, oh, there's a Twitter saying, oh, my husband or my neighbor has cholera, or oh no, there's a whole cholera epidemic here. So there's
I
going to be
guess
some
I
tracking
don't
that you
really
can do
have
there.
issue with it. I don't really have it being. I don't think I have issue with that kind of tracking. I think I'm more like extrapolating. Like, what if they were searching for keywords like Ron Paul, or they were searching for like 9/11 truth, or what if they could use those kinds of. If they could get that kind of information, what would they do with that? If is that potentially would it lead to like would these be stats that media companies could buy? Be like, all right, well, this portion of the world believes this, so we're going to target them with this. And is it going to lead to more of a public manipulation and trend spotting? I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it, because I do honestly see the benefits of. I would love to know when I would love to maybe a little alert when the Washington flu searches are spiking way up. Maybe I'd be like, oh, I should probably just stay home. Maybe I'll just stay home. So there's
Yeah, and
benefit there.
you can see that. You can do your own search and be like, oh, so I should be more alert and be careful. Lock the kids up. But there is that question. There's always, how far can you take these things? Then it goes everywhere from, sunshine and lollipops to conspiracy theories. So there's a whole range of things you can look on this. And if they do make rules about this, can they make, a niche that says you can specifically look for areas of this sort of epidemic and that sort of epidemic, so we can get more up to the minute results on these various diseases, but you can't attach them to specific people. There's all sorts of who knows what comes down the line. It's just interesting that they're now being able to use these type of things, and they do get more up to the minute results than lab techs can get you.
Yeah,
so they have better
sure,
idea
right?
of where to send these medications and such.
I mean, there's a higher margin of error. Because I could just be researching about flu.
Well, yeah, that's one of the first things I thought of when I first heard of the Google flu thing, and I'm like, I wonder if I search the flu a whole bunch, it'll throw off their numbers.
Well, right? So there's a little bit of that, but you figured, to some degree that really averages out, I'm sure.
Yeah, there's going to be, people who are always looking for that kind of thing. There's sort of an overall uptick or downtick for these kind of things that says, oh, there's a good chance that it's going up. Now, they just kind of publish the data, and it just so happens that it tracks, various things track really well.
Right.
But so you can kind of just take
Wall
that.
Street. Like protest and Occupy Wall Street, and like sick and sniffles and things like that.
Yeah. So you can see. So it's just sort of a take it as you see it and sort of look back and say, it's vaguely accurate. And so as you see the numbers go up and the numbers go down, you can sort of see, oh, more things are over here and less things are over there. And it just sort of is sort of an interesting thing that they're now there and getting all that information from it.
I agree. I'm glad you brought that one up, because I had actually seen it before, but honestly had never really given it any deep thought. I've never really, I just goes, oh yeah, of course Google could do that. I never really, because they have trends searching for any topic.
Oh yeah. And one of the other big things
this one, they just kind of all fancied up.
Yeah, is HealthMap. And that goes out and actually grabs all sorts of different sites. It grabs searches, it grabs Twitters, and it grabs all these different hot words and keywords and maps it on a world map and says, what do you want to look for? This is here, that is there. And so there's various ways and various sites that you can go to get this sort of information about what is where and what do you have to be worried about in your area, and all sorts of different ways that hypochondriacs should never look at.
Exactly.
Never look at. Yeah. I did not send you those links. Don't click the links.
Don't go to that section of the show notes if you're a hypochondriac. Just do yourself a favor.
Yes.
We won't pass judgment, but you should just avoid it. Let's just leave it at that.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about fun with the moon, or fun and games with the moon?
Yes, there is it's sort of funny. There is an augmented reality app that you can hold your phone up, and it will put up Tranquility Base in your background in your neighborhood. Now, what it seemed like it was is like you sort of hold it up and it would take some GPS data, and then you'd have to like walk around the park or your neighborhood to find out where it was kind of landing because it's just sort of landing near you. So you just kind of walk over here, see it land, and you could, it's this digital image on top of, the real, so you could sort of have somebody stand next to a digital Neil Armstrong and wave like, "Hi."
Cool. Yeah, they have an example of people playing in a park.
Yeah.
That is so awesome.
I just saw that and I had to laugh. It's one of those 99-cent apps.
No, it looks like on the iPhone. Have you seen that J.J. Abrams released an app that lets you shoot things with missiles using the camera? It's sort of the same virtual where they place video elements and things like that into the camera frame. It's really cool technology.
Oh,
it's like
cool.
It's like your own little pocket holodeck in a way.
Yeah.
Now, this next story you have in the NewsByte kind of makes it sound like the International Space Station is going to pull a maneuver from like Armageddon and have like these booster rockets that's going to make it propel out of the way of debris and things like that. What's going on?
Oh, you mentioned the movie and it makes my eye twitch. Those movies.
I'm sorry.
Well, it starts back in 2009, and one of the Iridium communication satellites collided with a defunct Russian spacecraft and makes, a cloud of thousands of pieces of debris orbiting the Earth.
Oh.
Now, those, of course, they, can pose collision hazards. And one of the pieces, about 4 inches in diameter, was going to pass within somewhere between half and 15 miles of the space station. So they calculated it down. They said, all right, we have to move the space station just a little to make sure that whatever piece it is has no chance of actually hitting.
So half a mile to 15 miles, even though they figured it wouldn't come within closer than half a mile, they just thought there was too much margin of error.
Yeah. Well, there's specific rules about will it pose a danger to equipment? It can be, 1 in 10,000 chance or whatever of posing a danger to equipment. And then there's danger to human life. And anything within a small percentage is going to say, all right, we're not taking the risk. We're going to put them in a safer location and bump them up here. Now, this is since the station went up in 98. You always hear, oh no, a piece is getting close to the station. This is only the 13th time since they actually moved.
Oh, okay.
So they don't move very often.
I guess if you think about it, yeah, especially considering all the crap that's up there.
Yeah. Now there's anytime there's something that's a certain distance away, they have procedures. You close the window hatches. You can close hatches between the various components and systems. So if something strikes, then you have a depressurization in a smaller portion of the station. Now, in last year, I've spoken before about they could actually hop into one of the reasons why they were going to, when the Russians couldn't get up to the station, why they would have to just take the last one down and everyone would have to clear out because you have to have the Soyuz spacecraft to come down. Because as a super backup, everyone would have to retreat into the landing spacecraft, sort of lock the door, and then wait. And if something hits the space station that makes it too dangerous to stay aboard, then you hit the ejection, your little life pod, and you come back to Earth. But they almost had to do that last year, but they didn't actually. They did some more estimates about where it would be and modeling where it would be, and so they didn't have to do that.
That must have been kind of touch and go tense there for a little bit then while they were figuring that out.
Yeah, so it's like, all right, guys, throw a bag in the ejection cabin and just sort of hang out while we get back to you.
If you guys don't mind, just pack your bags, but don't freak out. Just
pack a small bag. No need to worry. Toss it in.
Right, exactly. I think I smell. I think I smell some fresh breaking science news, Heather.
Yes. Now, some of this, I'll occasionally have these breaking news sections, and that's where it comes out the day we shoot the episode. So you'll have to forgive me if things aren't quite accurate or only have like 2 sentences to say about them. Some things.
Hey, it's fresh, right?
Yes.
Hasn't even been frozen yet. All right, what do you got?
Nope. We've talked we talked an episode or two back about the new twin probes around the moon, sort of telling us what's inside the moon. And there was some
the ones that were
contests.
sending photos back to the kids, right? Where they were going to take pictures of
Yes.
different stuff.
Yes, and the kids were able to, all these different classrooms of kids were able to submit names for them because they have, A and B, but some sort of official, like, quote unquote name for them. And a group of fourth graders in Montana in the USA were actually chosen as the winners, naming them Ebb and Flow.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So there was, they had a little 1-paragraph essay, and they're like, because the moon has makes the oceans move, and it's like the ebb and flow of the oceans. And there's their little classroom picture, and I think for the official announcement, they had little cardboard signs that they sort of held up over their heads, and it spelled out ebb and flow.
That is adorable.
Yep. So they had official, press announcement and all the official things, and then shoot to this classroom, and they're like holding their little cardboard signs up and smiling.
Yeah, I would love to have had something like that happen when I was in school. I feel bad for these kids though. They have like a 1999 iMac in their back room. I mean, that is, boy, times are rough for those kids. But that is really cool. They got to pick the name, and perfect name too. I'm glad that one won. That's perfect. What about this story? I actually heard this, I believe, this morning about rocks coming from Mars hitting the Earth or something like that effect, right?
Yeah. Now, we know that occasionally there are, meteorites that we find from Mars. The most famous one being the one that they think, the little fossilized worm microbes are.
Mm-hmm.
But the great majority of those are discovered in Antarctica, and, where the ice sort of, it lands in there, and the ice sort of brings it up in just the right place. So you just sort of ski along the ice scape and say, hey, there's a rock there. And you go and you pick it up. Now, very rarely, these fireballs that you can see in the sky land. And this one, in about mid-year last year, about July of 2011, a fireball was seen above the skies of North Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they are actually able to track down the rock in December.
Oh, no kidding.
Oh, we found it. We found it. And then, they did some analysis on that. And just this morning, January the 17th, they're able to confirm through chemical analysis that it was from Mars.
How does that happen?
Most likely it's, an asteroid strike comes in big enough that hits Mars at the right angle, and it spits up a whole bunch of parts of Mars, and they are able to actually escape the gravity of Mars and float around the solar system and eventually punch Earth.
And our gravity essentially grabs it?
Yeah, our gravity grabs it. It makes it through the atmosphere, lands on the ground, and somebody's able to track it down and be really, really lucky.
Yeah. That is an exceptional find.
Yeah. In the whole grand scheme of things, there are less than, about 220 pounds of Martian rocks here on the Earth in any sort of form. Now, which seems like a lot and also seems like a little. Now, this specific strike makes up about 15 pounds of that. It makes it a chunk. And what makes this incredibly interesting is that most of the finds are from, where it's been in ice for 1 million years or something, or hundreds of thousands of years. But there's only been 4 times since 1815 that we can actually see something through the atmosphere. You see a fireball, it hits the Earth, and you go and you dig it up.
That's like finding the treasure at the end of the rainbow.
Oh, yeah. Except it's a bright, fiery, don't stand underneath it thing.
And there's no leprechaun.
No. This one was actually, it was spotted by a couple
otherwise, if there is, it's an alien.
Well, then stay away from it unless the tripods want to trace you down. But this one was actually, they actually had somebody catch it on camera. The fireball coming. So they were going to catch that on camera, and they were able to confirm that it was from that location, that it was from Mars. Now, because it's such a fresh find that, it hits and you're able to find it within a year, less than a year of it actually hitting the Earth, it makes it really interesting. Well, it did sit there for about 6 months on Earth, but it hasn't sit around on Earth for too long.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't think of that.
Yeah, so there's much less possibility of contamination. Now, it's still there because, of course, it sat in dirt for 6 months or so, but there's a lot less chance that it was completely contaminated through all the different parts of it. Now, Martian meteorites themselves are pretty rare. I mean, 220 pounds seems like a lot, but they're about 1 million times rarer than gold.
Ooh.
And the guy who found this has been able to sell this at by the gram at about 10 times the price of gold.
Oh man.
He's selling it to scientists, to private investors, to museums, to all these different places, and it's like by the gram, and depending on which sample it is you buy it and he'll sell it.
Wow, that guy is going to be set for life.
Yeah. There are a couple of these people who find these things and they're able to sell them, or they ask for so much money that no one can buy them, and it ends up in a museum. But yeah, some of these pieces that you see in museums were from people who go out and search and they buy them.
So note to self, stop making shows, go outside and watch the skies, and then go find this rock, and boom, done.
Invest in a $10 garage sale metal detector and wander around fields for like a whole bunch of time and hope that you're lucky. And remember to take your shovel.
If I'm smart, I'll just turn SciByte into a money-making. I'll just wait for you to tell me what's coming up in the sky, and then when you say we have a meteor coming, I'll wait for it to land, and then I'll get it, and it's no big deal. I got it.
Yeah, because that's really easy to schedule.
Yeah,
no, that's what it is. We need to have all our viewers look up. Like anytime you see something, get Chris out there to you.
You know what?
He will go out.
If we all pulled together, we could split it. It sounds like with that kind of money, I think we could all work something out. I think we could.
Yeah. Hey, a lot of these private astronomers, part-time astronomers have found a lot of meteors, asteroids.
We don't have a video of that fireball coming in, right?
No, I know that the video exists. I don't think it has gotten released yet, or it's not really out there to go viral yet.
Right.
I mean, it just was today, confirmed, so they might be holding off, or for all I know, the person who took the video could be waiting to sell it to a news outlet.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Interesting. That might be worth some money too, right?
Yeah, like here is the video of it coming down. Who wants it?
That way I got to play the fail horn because that just sucks. I'd like to see that out in the public.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I play the fail horn for that guy. There it is, right there. I want that. I want to because people in the chat room, they want us to put a link to that in the show notes. Hey, we got a little spacecraft updates. You want to jump to that?
We do.
Continuing spacecraft update. We almost, at this point, I'm going to get us a sound bump for it.
Yeah. Poor Phobos Grunt. This is probably most likely the last time we're going to hear about it. It came down over the Pacific Ocean, about 760 miles off the coast of South America, off the west coast. And so it's with the fishes now. Literally, physically. It's hanging out with the fishes.
Water, that's good, right?
Yeah, it was most likely to. So it came down over the ocean. There was a small period of time where they were worried that the debris stream might actually, part of it hit land. But as they did, not a bummer that it didn't hit land.
No, just the whole, no, I'm sorry. I was just thinking about the whole fact that we started this, when we started in this show, we were all excited about it going to Mars. Yep. And now
I see it's like the last time on SciByte, and it's like all the different days, and I'm like remembering back. It's like happy, not so happy, less happy, sad, even sadder.
Starting in November, very excited, and then now by January, it's sad.
It's like that pain scale in the hospital where it's like big smiley face and crying face. It's like near.
Exactly. Now these guys deserve the fail horn. I'll tell you that. So you're right. I am glad it hit the water though.
Yeah.
I guess there's a silver lining.
Yeah, silver lining. The fishes are lucky or unlucky depending on what landed on.
There's further reading, including the link that we mentioned last week about Alaska's HARP project being blamed by the Russian somebody over at Russia for it. They blamed HARP for it, but
Yeah,
That's kind of
and
been
now some
debunked.
Russian scientists are coming out and they're going, "No, I don't think so. That I don't think it's very likely that it happened." So there's some things going back and forth in Russia, depending on who you wish to listen to about the likelihood of
Well, this will
it
be the
going down
third
because of
failure,
our.
right? The third failed probe.
Oh, poor
I think it
Russia.
is, right?
It's
I think
had a
it's.
lot. It's had a lot of bad luck. I off the top of my head, I don't believe it's really had any successful Mars missions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um,
I read somewhere today. I think that it was their third failed Mars launch. So
yeah,
there's some definite probably heads being rolled. All right. Well, should we
yeah,
move on to the science calendar?
yes.
Then that means the first thing we need to do is come on, Heather, get in here. We got to step into the
I'm
come on, get in the
coming.
time machine. Here we go. Here we go. All right. Every week, this time on SciByte, we jump in the science time machine. So I told you I'd get it working. And
Yep.
we look back at what happened this week in science. And our first one takes us to 101 years ago, January 18th, 1911.
Yes. A mere 11 years after the Wright brothers' actually first flight, a lieutenant actually made the first landing on an aircraft.
Oh, okay.
He was
Wow.
using a biplane and a wooden platform, and he landed on the deck of the USS Pennsylvania.
A
It's
biplane, a wooden biplane.
yeah,
Can you imagine with the wind and all of that out in the water, how crazy that must have been?
yeah, and just a little over a decade since airplanes came out, airplanes flew, and it's funny because if you've seen modern jets and stuff land on carriers, you see that they kind of have a hook and they
Mm-hmm.
sort of hook themselves on these wires and
Right.
ropes to help them slow down.
I will tell you this: that whole landing and takeoff system to me, it looks exactly like a system that has been designed from tried and true testing of what works, and so that
Yep,
means that they must have had nothing for this guy. What did they do? What did they have for this guy?
he did. He used a hook and stretched ropes across the landing
They
platform.
did it. Wow. Okay,
Yeah,
there you
it
go. So they
was.
figured out
It's
early.
based. The systems that we have modern day is pretty much the same system that they used it the first time, where it's
Okay.
hook and slow yourself down.
It's a little disappointing because honestly, I looked at a system like that and I thought, that must be like this because nothing else works. But what it really is this works, so why fix it?
Yeah, this works really well. I mean, it's they improve the versions. They 1.0, 1.1.2, but if it works and nothing else is
I hear you.
really all that awesome, I don't know if you want to land on an aircraft carrier and really try all that many things that you don't think are going to work.
No, right. I mean, like I say, hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? That's probably what
Yeah.
they figure. All right. Should we go 15 years ago, January 22nd, 1997? The sky actually was
Yes.
falling.
Yes. In 1969, there are reports of pieces of space debris assumed to be from Soviet origin. It hit a Japanese ship, injuring 5 sailors.
Oh,
So there were reports of that. But on January 22nd, 1997, a woman
Loretta
was actually
Williams.
Lottie Williams was hit on the shoulder.
Oh, okay.
She was sort of just walking in the park and something bumped her shoulder and she thought maybe it was somebody tapping her on the shoulder. She turns around and this little black and metallic metal thing sitting on the ground. She's like, huh. So she picks it up and it was actually confirmed to be consistent with fiberglass fabric used on a Delta II rocket. Launched about 9 months before, it crashed in the atmosphere just a couple hours earlier.
Wow.
So she became the first human in the world to be hit by confirmed man-made space debris.
Well, there you go. How exciting is that? I mean, what an honor.
Yes, and
So
she got a little piece of paper that sort of said, "Yes, we believe that this is what happened," and so it's one of those things
there
where
you go.
you didn't get hurt, so it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
You're like,
yeah. I mean,
I
if it just
didn't break.
felt like somebody tapping on her shoulder. That's not so bad.
Oh yeah, it's like just little fiberglass, and they think that what happened is actually it burned a lot up, and things like that can be carried in the wind pretty easily. So it's probably just kind of floating in the wind for a little while, and then just kind of blew and hit against her.
That makes sense. All right, well, hold on. Let me refactor here because we got to we got to go from the past, and now we need to look up into the sky.
Yes. There's not a whole bunch exciting going on this week, but sometimes there's not a whole bunch going up in the sky. So we've got new moon on
Ooh.
January 23rd.
Whatever, that's exciting. That's really exciting.
That's, the moon is at its darkest. So that's always fun.
Yeah.
You can see more stars then.
Yeah.
In the northern hemisphere, on Thursday, January the 19th, around about 10 p.m., there'll be an orange, quote-unquote, star in the east. That's Mars, so we actually get to see Mars.
Oh,
and it'll be continuing to get brighter through all the way early March. So the Mars is the orange thing in the east sky.
On Thursday.
Mid-evening Thursday, and it'll continue to be around at different times in different parts of the sky, but it's up there for right now. And in the southern hemisphere, our friends on the other side of the equator, on Friday, January the 20th, Mars is it's not Mars. It looks like a red, sort of reddish star, but it's actually the star Antares just above the moon. So not unfortunately Mars this time, but sometimes when things look like they could be a planet, it's a good idea to be like, no, actually, that's not a planet. That is a star.
So it could be the red giant, or is it just like maybe the way the light looks or something like that?
It is a red giant.
Oh, okay.
So it has that red look to it.
Cool.
Has a little bit of a red dim.
That's even kind of cooler, actually.
Yeah, so it's a star. So sometimes it's good to know, yes, it's a planet, and that's cool. But sometimes you're like, oh, that looks kind of like a planet, but I remember it's just a star this week.
Every time I look up, I'm always like, is that a satellite? I can't tell if it's a satellite. That's always my problem.
If it moves.
Right.
Probably.
That's what I always do. I always stop and I stare and I analyze it. Is that moving? Is that moving? No, it's not moving.
Yeah,
well, there you go. Heather,
moving at a decent clip. And then you just have to worry. It's like, is it flashing? Is that an airplane? Nope. Yes, it is.
No, it's a UFO. Yeah, we haven't mentioned for a little while, but we should. That if you want to ask us a science question, or if you have a story, or suggestion, something like that, or a topic you want us to cover, you can email us SciByte@jupiterbroadcasting.com, and that's where the science email goes. Is there anything else you want to talk about, Heather?
Not just that. I get questions occasionally. I get Twitter things from my Twitter, people pointing out various stories, and every once in a while, if the science is very busy, then we'll keep the stories. Otherwise, it'll be in a slow science week, or we'll stay until there's a whole bunch of them. We can do a whole episode of just feedback.
Ooh, that'd be fun. So what is your Twitter handle?
It is JB_MarsBase.
There, JB_Mars_base.
Mars_base.
That's
a whole bunch of underscores.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you have it, everyone. There's this week's episode of SciByte. Now, also, just a reminder that SciByte is live over at jblive.tv on Tuesday evenings at 7:30 p.m. Pacific, and then released Wednesday morning with all of the formats you could ever want and RSS feeds to download. All right, Heather. Well, thanks for another great episode.
Yes.
All right, everyone. We'll see you right back here next week.